Hillside. So we're in this series, Abide, and when you think of Abide, I think most of us probably think of a certain passage in Scripture that Louis has used in this series, and that's in John chapter 15. And in verse 4, starting in verse 4, he says, "Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing." And he goes on continuing. We love to talk about this, about being connected to Christ, and that's how we grow fruit, and it sustains us, and all of it is life-giving, which is super good and awesome. But if we back up in the start of this chapter, right, in verse 1, he starts this whole saying by saying, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit." So, pruning, right? We don't, or we talk about that in a way that, yeah, it grows us, but do we really focus on how hard pruning can be, right? And the fact that it occurs to me that every branch that bears fruit, so the productive branches, so when we're doing things, we're plugged into God and we're producing fruit, that's when he's going to prune us. And but at the same time, we don't want to not bear fruit, because then we get totally removed. So there's pain in this process, right? And for me, this really is relevant as I've gone through what feels like definitely a season of pruning, a lot of pruning being done. But I'm also a big proponent of telling people, I don't want to ever get too comfortable, because that means I'm no longer growing. And so there's a time for that, like a respite where you're comfortable, you've experienced growth, and you're living in it. But at some point, because you're bearing fruit, God's gonna come around and prune you so that you can then bear even more fruit. And it's a really painful process. It's a hard thing if you're going to go around saying that, yeah, I don't want to ever get too comfortable, because then I'm not growing. But be prepared for what's going to come with it, because it's really, really hard. But I noticed that the harder things, when I am pruned, the better the other side is. And especially just right now, the pruning that I've been through. And I'm really grateful for the way that it's really given me a new empathy and a new way to be able to connect with people on a new level and care for them, and really love them and help them in whatever situation they're in. And I wouldn't want to give that up, even for the painful process that pruning is. It's so worth it, and it's how God shapes us more and more into his image. I don't know why, just saying that, I had an image of like the people who trim their hedges into like certain shapes, or people who bonsai trees. It's a really slow process, and they painstakingly every day clip the bonsai trees to get them to grow in a certain way, as like a work of art. And that's like, you can think of that as how God's working on us over time, slowly shaping us into his image. So that's what I have for you today, and we'll see you next time, Hillside.